The disappearance of Diana Duvay began not with a bang, but with a quiet, digital whisper that quickly escalated into a chorus of alarm. On the morning of June 21st, 2014, her mother, Lena Andrews, stood inside the Vero Beach police station, burdened by a profound silence that had followed a single, cryptic text message sent hours earlier. Diana's message, written in her native Russian, simply stated she would not be returning home that night, a departure from her reliable routine that immediately felt wrong. Lena's subsequent attempts to reach her daughter were met with an unnerving void. Turning to Diana's boyfriend, Mike Jones, provided only a temporary, and ultimately false, sense of relief. He claimed Diana was merely sleeping at his house and would call later. When that call never came and Mike himself subsequently vanished, the concern transformed into a full-blown crisis. The situation was gravely underscored when neither the dedicated oncology nurse nor the successful wealth planner reported for work, confirming for investigators that this was not a simple case of two adults needing space, but a coordinated disappearance with troubling implications from the very start. As detectives initiated their investigation, the last known location for both individuals became the immediate focus: Mike Jones's residence at 1620 42nd Square. Securing a search warrant, officers entered the home, finding an environment that, on the surface, appeared orderly and undisturbed. There were no obvious signs of a struggle, no overturned furniture or shattered glass to suggest a violent confrontation had taken place within its walls. This veneer of normalcy, however, was dangerously misleading. A meticulous examination of the property yielded the first tangible clue that something was terribly wrong. In the garage, near the base of the door, crime scene technicians identified several small, dry droplets of a substance that had the distinct appearance of blood. This discovery shifted the entire complexion of the case, transforming it from a missing persons investigation into a potential homicide inquiry. The absence of both Diana's black Nissan and Mike's gold Mazda from the property added another layer of mystery, forcing police to issue statewide bulletins for both vehicles in the hope they would lead to the couple's whereabouts. To piece together the events leading to Diana's disappearance, detectives began reconstructing the couple's final days, a timeline that revealed a relationship in its death throes. Their inquiry led them to the Scampi Grill, where, 2 nights before Diana vanished, server Michael Major witnessed a deeply tense interaction between the couple. He recognized them immediately from a prior, uncomfortable encounter at a bar called The Grove, where Mike had displayed intense jealousy over a casual conversation. At the restaurant, the couple's demeanor was strained. They were engaged in a low, heated exchange throughout their meal, with Mike's body language described as overtly aggressive. It became clear this dinner culminated in a final breakup. The emotional fallout was visible hours later when Mike was seen alone at the Grove, visibly upset and crying. He confirmed the split to co-workers the next day, even mentioning plans to travel to Orlando, a trip meant to create distance. Yet, in a confusing twist, the very next night, the couple was seen together one last time, leaving a bar called What a Tavern after 1 a.m., a sighting that would mark the final time Diana was seen alive. The troubled dynamic between Diana and Mike was not a new development, but rather the culmination of a pattern that friends had witnessed with growing concern. Diana's best friend, Chelsea, provided investigators with a chilling account of a prior violent episode months earlier. During a heated argument at Mike's apartment, his yelling and threats escalated to the point where he physically choked Diana. The attack was severe enough that a neighbor called the police, and Chelsea later documented the visible marks on her friend's neck with photographs. While Diana moved out temporarily, she eventually returned, a decision that worried those closest to her. Other friends, like Kyle, recounted Mike's possessive and volatile nature, describing an incident where a simple, friendly hug between Kyle and Diana triggered a jealous rage, with Mike approaching him with clenched fists. This portrait of a controlling and violent partner was cemented when a background check uncovered a previous criminal conviction. Mike Jones had a felony record for the aggravated stalking of an ex-girlfriend in Fort Lauderdale. The search for Mike Jones concluded with a swift, anticlimactic discovery that raised more questions than it answered. Contrary to his stated plans to visit friends in Orlando, his gold Mazda was located in the parking lot of a Hampton Inn in Fort Pierce, a mere 25-minute drive from his home. Surveillance footage captured him checking in, but his actions were deliberately clandestine. He paid in cash and gave hotel staff explicit instructions not to acknowledge his presence or put through any phone calls. When detectives entered his room, they found a man who was hiding, but not one ready to confess. In a brief, recorded interaction, Mike calmly stated, "I'll tell you unequivocally, I don't know where she is," before immediately invoking his right to legal counsel. This calculated move ended the conversation, but intensified the scrutiny on him. Just hours after this interview, the investigation reached its most devastating milestone when Diana's black Nissan was located, abandoned and alone, in a supermarket parking lot over an hour away in Melbourne. The discovery of Diana's car in Melbourne marked the tragic, inevitable conclusion of the search. When police officers pried open the trunk, they found the 26-year-old nurse inside, dressed only in her underwear. The scene confirmed the worst fears of her family and friends. Based on the condition of her body, it was evident she had been deceased for several days, meaning she was likely killed shortly after her final sighting. An autopsy would later formally determine the brutal cause of death, a combination of blunt force trauma to her head and manual strangulation. This evidence painted a clear picture of a violent and personal attack. For those who knew her, the reality was shattering. A close friend, reflecting the sentiment of the community, described Diana as a person who brought a smile to their face and was a bright spot in their life, making the brutal nature of her death a devastating loss that underscored the profound tragedy of a promising life cut short by violence. With Diana found and Mike the prime suspect, the investigation pivoted to forensically connecting him to the crime. A critical break came when detectives, reasoning the killer needed transport after abandoning Diana's car, located a taxi driver who had picked up a fare from a Wendy's near the scene that morning. The driver provided a detailed account of his passenger, a thin man in a red hoodie, and their conversation. The man claimed his friend's car broke down, and she was too pissed to give him a ride back. The driver dropped him at an address directly across from Mike's own apartment and later identified Mike in a police lineup. The final, irrefutable link came from Walmart security footage, which showed Mike alone, emerging from Diana's Nissan to purchase a prepaid burner phone, the very phone used to call the taxi. This sequence proved he was in sole possession of her vehicle after her death, methodically attempting to cover his tracks. As the case moved toward trial, a deeper examination of Mike Jones's character revealed a life built upon a foundation of elaborate deception. To his colleagues and acquaintances, he presented himself as a high-achieving wealth manager, but this persona was propped up by a web of grandiose lies. He falsely claimed to own a Porsche and a penthouse in Fort Lauderdale, and he had even told professors during law school that he was battling cancer to excuse his absences. He fabricated a story about being adopted and raised in poverty, seemingly to embellish his personal narrative of success. These lies, while seemingly unrelated to the murder, painted a picture of a man deeply insecure and consumed with maintaining a specific image, a man for whom the truth was entirely malleable. This pattern of deceit made his claims of innocence in Diana's death ring hollow. The legal proceedings against Mike Jones moved methodically toward their conclusion. At his trial in October 2019, the defense put forward a weak theory, suggesting Diana's fatal injuries could have been accidental and that Mike had only panicked afterward. This argument collapsed under cross-examination, as the state's evidence, the timeline, the taxi driver, the Walmart footage, and the history of abuse formed an undeniable chain of guilt. The jury deliberated for a mere 45 minutes before returning a guilty verdict for first-degree murder. During the sentencing phase, Diana's mother, Lena, delivered a powerful and heartbreaking victim impact statement, directly addressing the man who took her only child. "You came to my home, you sit at my table, and you took my daughter away from me," she stated. "If hate could kill, you would be dead now." While the jury voted 11-1 for the death penalty, a unanimous verdict was required, and Mike Jones was ultimately sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. In the aftermath of the trial, the case of Diana Juve stands as a stark narrative of how a calculated plan can be undone by the perpetrator's own flaws. Mike Jones, a man with a law degree who understood evidence, meticulously attempted to create an alibi, dispose of the victim's car, and hide using a burner phone. Yet, his actions were consistently undermined by his own character, his jealousy, his need for control, and his inability to fully commit to his own plan. His decision to occasionally use his personal phone led investigators directly to his hotel, and his attempt to explain his presence in Melbourne to the taxi driver was a poorly conceived story that only incriminated him further. While he will spend his life in prison, the outcome offers little solace for the lasting void left by Diana's absence, a life of promise and compassion extinguished by a man who could not accept her rejection. If you found this video informative, please give a thumbs up, share this video, and subscribe for more deep dives into true crime cases. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay safe.